You might remember me telling you in episode 1 that when I first came to Albania, I didn't intend to stay in Tirana at all. The tourist guide I read didn't have too much to say about it other than it was now colourful, and the section under sites and attractions had only 3 listings: the Etembe Mosque, the National History Museum, and the National Gallery of Arts. Of course, given that the Albanian capital Tirana is the only city in Albania that has an airport, I couldn't help but spend at least a few hours here, and during my planning stages, I really wasn't too excited about it. Everything I read on the internet, all the blogs, all the reviews, said it was a really drab place that wasn't worth an overnight stay. And I believed it. This is why I planned to get off the plane and make my way straight to the bus to Berat. Back then, there were no bus stations like there are today, and all the advice I had seen said that buses left for different destinations from different streets around town, with locations changing regularly. This was the only reason that I found myself in Skanderberg Square that fateful day that I decided to stay just one night. As you would be well aware, that one night has since turned into 5+ years, and it's because I chose to stay here a little longer, with no expectations, that I ended up falling in love with Tirana the way I did. It was being able to get to know its people, its history, and its culture that kept me enthralled. That's the thing about Tirana, there's so much more to it than meets the eye. The best thing for tourists to do is immerse in the local lifestyle, drink coffee at one of the many cafes, talk with local people, take a bus out to the neighbourhoods and whatnot. This is the best way to experience what Tirana has to offer. In the 3rd episode, Kicking It in Korea, we explored some of the positives and benefits of coming here as part of one of these tours. It's a great way to see bits and pieces of many different places and decide to come back if you want to later. I don't know the exact figures, but I've heard numerous times that approximately 80% of tourists that do not originate from Kosovo come to Albania as part of a group tour. But especially for Albania, it doesn't allow you the opportunity to really get to know the vibe, atmosphere, and people, which is the best part of a trip to the land of the eagles for so many. In my opinion, to be appreciated, Tirana really needs your time. Follow those instincts that tell you to relax, let your guard down, spend 2 hours drinking an espresso like the locals do, and just start talking to people. Fill in the rest of your time with some of the activities we've already mentioned throughout the episode, or check out some of these new recommendations we have for you. Tirana is not a stereotypical postcard-worthy city. You won't find an Eiffel Tower, for example, but you will find an odd pyramid-like structure in the centre of town with an incredible backstory. It's locations such as this one that you'll find on Instagram. And let me tell you, Tirana is definitely an Instagrammable city, because this particular platform allows travellers to share pictures as well as brief summaries of what it is you're looking at. Instagram plays a huge role in the travel community, and we hear over and over and over again of foreigners who have come here based on what they've seen or recommendations they've received from this social media platform. As such, in today's episode, we'll take a look at the 10 most Instagrammable locations in Tirana. These are great spots to check out if you're looking for some inspiration to visit Tirana, and places you should definitely put on your itinerary and grab your snap for the gram upon arrival here. To be honest, a great way to explore Tirana would be to plot these spots on a map and create your own walking tour. There's plenty more that I'm not mentioning here, but these are my favourite tourist sites that are also super Instagram friendly. So in at number 10 is that pyramid I was talking about. This rather odd-looking structure was built by the daughter of the former communist dictator Enver Hoxha and her husband. As such, it's a site of contention amongst much of the local population and has laid dormant as an unused building for some time, only used as an object to climb for great views of the city. Now, the local government has plans to turn it into a youth technology hub, offering workshops and programs on subjects like IT, programming and robotics. Number 9 is just nearby, the I Love Tirana sign at Rania Park. This park is currently under renovations though, and the sign has since been removed, but here's hoping that it will be replaced. Taking inspiration from the newborn monument in Pristina, the lettering of the I Love Tirana sign was regularly updated whilst it was still in commission. The UFO-style building behind the sign is also a great Insta-snap from any of the rooftop bars, and the fountains light up with all different colours. It hosts the country's only remaining casino, as gambling was made illegal on January 1st, 2019, as well as a bowling rink and some other rather pricey restaurants. When I first saw the installation in front of the National Gallery of Arts, I thought it was a bit weird. But then again, I'm not much of an art appreciator. Over time, though, The Cloud by Japanese artist Sao Fujimoto was brought to Tirana temporarily after having lived in Hyde Park, London previously. Taking my number 8 place, The Cloud was given this name because that's exactly what it looks like from an aerial point of view. Taking a sidestep away from our countdown, the National Arts Gallery is one of those places that so frequently gets overlooked. A place that you feel like you could always visit tomorrow, but tomorrow never comes. Tourists are likely to visit, but locals not so much, unless they happen to be school children on an excursion. When you live somewhere, you often take places like this gallery for granted. I am absolutely guilty of this, and despite having grown a much greater appreciation for the visual arts since moving to Europe, until I was writing this episode, I'd never stepped foot inside. I had heard from many people that the permanent exhibition displays some paintings that had been banned during communist times for rather strange reasons, such as the field workers were not smiling broadly enough. Unfortunately, Albania was rocked with a devastating 6.4 magnitude earthquake recently, and many buildings in Tirana have been affected. The situation is really quite dire in Durrës and its surrounds, and the process of rehousing and rebuilding is likely to continue throughout 2020. Please consider donating to provide assistance through the links on our social media and in this episode's YouTube description. The National Gallery, when we visited, was still waiting an assessment, and as such only a small portion was open for viewing, that being of an Albanian artist, Ardian Patsi from Shkodra.
So prova means testing.
The feature point of this temporary exhibition is a 10-minute and 16-second video installation titled Prova, produced by Cube Studios, who described it as a metaphor on the political conditions of the country and an exploration of the human state. The video shows permanently unemployed citizens repeating the word prova into microphones, meaning testing, as a way of saying that everything they do is just a rehearsal without the possibility to truly move forward in life given the surrounding conditions. Ardian Patsi attended the Academy of Arts in Tirana before becoming a lecturer in art history and aesthetics in Shkodra. However, during the violence of the late 1990s in Albania, he fled to Milan. In the words of the Guggenheim Museum, his work frequently addresses themes of geographical separation, nostalgia, and memory, and conveys a keen sense of mutability of life and art. This is the first exhibition of its type to be held at the National Gallery of Arts, and it really is very interesting, with a wide variety of mediums utilised. Although he is primarily known for his video work, Ardian Patsi's exhibition also includes sculptures, photographs, paintings, and at times he creates work that blends across more than one medium, such as what seems like moving photography. My favourite piece, though, was an older video installation of his titled Perspeculum. This might not be the Louvre, but this museum is definitely worth a visit. Back to our countdown, and coming in at number 7 is the 18th century stone footbridge located in the centre of Tirana, known as Tanner's Bridge. It's a famous monument, though other than looking at it and thinking, oh, that's a pretty bridge, and taking an Insta-snap, there's not really much more to it. Given the close proximity to Tanner's Bridge, I'm going to group the still under construction but already incredibly beautiful giant mosque that was built as a project from Turkish investments in at number 7. It's actually set to be the largest mosque in the Balkans. You might remember the discussions from the 4th episode in Leisure, where it was explained that Albania is a role model for the world for religious harmony. There aren't a lot of practicing Muslims in the country, and for many, this mosque is a welcome addition to the cityscape. Right now, I'm placing this as number 7, but who knows, once it's finished, it could move up a couple of places. We've shown you the lake park a few times now in episodes 1 and 2, and probably more actually, but this area also offers a wide range of landscapes great for an Insta shoot. One of the most popular, more recent additions was the beautifully painted staircase. Given the multitude of picture-perfect spots, the artificial lake park of Tirana comes in at number 6. Go back a few decades and Tirana was a grey, concrete jungle. These days, however, in addition to the brilliant colours of the apartment buildings, interesting motifs and murals now adorn many of the facades around the city, making the perfect backdrop to your #Tirana snap. Collectively, these locations take up the number 5 spot on my list. Furthermore, for position number 5, in addition to the aesthetically pleasing buildings, over the past couple of years, an initiative has been undertaken to further brighten up the city by painting all the electoral boxes with different motifs. Some have characters from popular books or movies. Some have inspirational quotes, and some are just plain random, like one with a cartoon monster whose tongue is sticking out, painted all the way onto the concrete footpath below. In at number 4 is the gorgeous tree-lined Pedonalia, which I believe was actually the first pedestrian area in Tirana and was built with assistance from the EU. Wander along and find many cafes, restaurants, a cinema, and at the end, even a shopping centre. There are other new additions to this area that we'll also explore in future episodes, so be sure to keep watching our series. Now we have hit the top 3 spots, and taking out the second runner-up position is Sheshin Teresa, or Mother Teresa Square. This is the space home to the University of Tirana, the national stadium, and an interesting mural set to resemble a traditional Albanian carpet placed in the centre, which is best viewed from above. This site is featured in many famous Albanian music videos and a favoured spot for photographs by VIPs. It's also a cool place to hang out in the summertime, enjoy some snacks and beverages, and people watch, with many of the locals choosing this option also. The second best spot for snapping that pic for the gram in Tirana has to be the recently renovated Bazaar, or a new Bazaar. Again, we touched on this location in the first episode, but today I'll let you know a little more about it. This is one of the first major projects that was realised by the local government, as led by the current mayor, Erion Veliaj. Paving the market's dirt ground, adding permanent shelters, and sprucing up the facades of the surrounding buildings, the new market was inaugurated in 2016. Although the project was enshrouded in controversy, once it was completed, many citizens saw this project as being the first step to reinventing the city in a more modern European context. But nowhere has the city's recent renovations had a bigger impact than in the absolute centre of town, Skanderberg Square. This area used to be a 4-lane roundabout where the sounds of car horns tooting created the soundtrack of Tirana. In 2017, it was reopened as the largest pedestrian square in the Balkans and is now the venue of choice for many of the city's celebrations and events. It also happens to be centred upon and surrounded by some of the city's most famous sites, such as the statue of the national hero and namesake of the square, Gjergj Kastrioti Skanderbo, though most tourists refer to it, rather ignorantly, as the horse statue. The statue of Skanderberg at Skanderberg was inaugurated back in 1968, making it a focal point for the city for quite some time. Similarly, the National History Museum has also long been a prominent feature of the Tirana cityscape at Skanderberg Square. It's characterised by its prominent mosaicked facade, a piece of socialist realist art completed as a collective work by 5 Albanian artists. The 400-metre square mosaic was completed in 1980 before the grand opening of the museum in 1981. The oldest monument of this area, however, is the Etembe Mosque. Construction of the mosque began in the late 18th century and was completed in the early 19th century. It was one of the only religious buildings that survived the atheist communist era, although it wasn't allowed to be used as a house of worship during those times. It's currently under restoration and set to reopen soon. Just behind the mosque is the clock tower, where many construction workers used to gather during communist times in hopes of picking up extra work. Now it's a popular tourist meeting point, and you can even climb to get great city views. Some of the newer additions that have resulted from the renovations are some of the most photogenic also, and I'm sure that's no coincidence. Not only are the water fountains gorgeous day and night, but they also provide some great relief from the heat in the summer months. The space regularly gets decorated for different holidays and events, and its ever-changing scenery ensures that you'll never get bored walking through or simply hanging out and relaxing in Skanderberg Square. In November of 2017, the first Christmas market was held at the new pedestrianised Skanderberg Square, and as part of the festivities, a carousel was added. Featured prominently at all the top Instagram accounts, this carousel has now become a permanent fixture of the square. In my opinion, all of these spots are even more aesthetically pleasing when you get to see them in real life, so my recommendation is to come here and see it for yourself. Looking through these pictures, you can't help but notice the dramatic mountains surrounding Tirana, the most prominent of which is Mount Daiti. Now, if you want something Instagram-worthy, Daiti is definitely the place to be, but I decided not to include it in my list because I'm not sure it's technically for Tirana. In addition to beautiful surroundings, Tirana is the best place for tourists to try traditional food. From all over the country, And why not combine the two by heading up the cable car to Daiti Mountain? I know, we've been here a few times already, but there really is just so much to do up here, and one thing we have yet to explore is the excellent slow food culture offered in Albania, which is an exceptional feature of the venues of Daiti Mountain. So today I have Adam from England, my good friend, who's going to come with me up to the top of the mountain. Once we get to the top, we're going to enjoy a lovely meal at the top of Mount Daiti, have a bit of a look around. We are heading to the Balkani Daiti restaurant, which is the most easily accessible given that it is located right on the cliffside as you arrive on the cable car. We are in for a true Albanian culinary experience. So this time we're just going to relax a bit, enjoy a meal, eat some good food. Adam loves beer, so I'm going to give him a beer.
Yeah, all good. No hiking and beer. Fantastic.
Perfect day, huh?
Perfect day.
Awesome.
Yes.
Today we decided to drive instead of taking the cable car, which seemed simpler at the time, but upon reflection, it's really not. It's definitely a lot more convenient to travel by teleferik than the windy mountain roads. Okay, so we've made pretty good time given the traffic. It was a pretty smooth run, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Yeah? We are now up on the mountain. We're just on our way to the top, but we have just arrived behind a learner driver. How fast do you think they're going, Adam?
About 20 kilometers an hour.
Probably about 20 k's an hour, yeah. So this is going to slow us down just a tad. Don't get me wrong, I don't blame this learner driver for going slow. In fact, I'd probably be driving in the same style if I was game enough to drive this mountain road at all. Even our highly experienced Ora chauffeur felt the need to play it cool on these roads, so the cable car continues to seem like the most viable option. We were making really, really good time. The mountain seems to have slowed us down just a chick. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Half Albanian there. Slowly and safely, or avash avash, we made it up to Daiti once again. Okay, so
We've made it.
we made it. Where are we, Adam?
We're at the top of Mount Daiti.
And why did we come up here in the end?
In the end, to have a bit of traditional Albanian food at the restaurant.
Yes, and most importantly, your favorite thing,
The beer.
the beer. So we have made it here. We've got the beautiful rotating bar, in the background. There's a hotel here, the teleferik. We're going to head over here to the Balkani Daiti restaurant and enjoy a nice lunch since we made it all this way.
Very good.
A good celebration. And so we sit down to enjoy a nice meal at the Balkani Daiti restaurant, seeing whatever it is they have prepared for us to enjoy. It's a pretty nice view from up here, don't you think?
Yeah, fantastic. You can see all of Tirana from here.
If you get it on a really clear day, you can see as far as Durrës sometimes, but it's not very clear today, so fun and do. Not the worst place in the world to have a nice lunch. Speaking of lunch, we're going to have a traditional Albanian lunch today.
Yeah.
What sort of Albanian foods have you tried before?
So it's all about the grilled vegetables, the grilled meat, the salads. It's a fantastic mix, similar to Mediterranean, Greek, Balkan traditional food. I like many different dishes.
Good, because we're going to get a selection of different things. The great thing about Albanian food is it's meant for sharing, so you can get a little bit of everything and have some variety. Do you have one particular favorite dish that you like?
I like the furges, which is cottage cheese with peppers and tomatoes, and it's one of my favourites. One of the first few dishes I learnt to make.
Really?
In
you
Albania.
can make it?
Of course.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's pretty good, but it's one of my favourites, and I'm looking forward to having it here if they have it on the menu.
I believe we are getting that, and it's interesting that you say that because that's my favourite dish as well in
Really?
Albanian food.
Very good.
I can't make it though, so you might have to do that for me one day.
Sure, we'll see about that.
In the meantime, it's arrived.
Gazua.
Bazaar to Tirana.
Tirana.
We are first delivered an excellent mezza plate filled with all different traditional Albanian produce, sauces and dairy products. This will definitely delight the taste buds before the main affair. The pastries are particularly delicious. I'm a real sucker for spinach and cheese burek. We are delivered more and more and more and more food, all absolutely delicious. All of a sudden, we are surrounded by a large tour group, so I decide to interrupt their meal and have a chat to them. I'm keen to know more about the processes and methods that the restaurant utilises in order to label themselves as slow food. This means that they used farmed organic ingredients to create their meals, generally as the dishes would have been traditionally prepared throughout the centuries. They even took me out to meet the chickens, although they were super cute, and if I hung out here too long, the thought of eating these feathery little friends would be enough to turn me into a vegetarian. After an incredibly enjoyable meal that would delight any tourist, we head back to Tirana. I quite enjoyed my time at the gallery, and there was another museum I'd always wanted to go to, but never had the chance to visit. It's one that explores Albania's communist past and one of its darkest aspects at that. It's the House of Leaves, the Museum of Secret Surveillance.
There's no denying that visiting Tirana in the summer is much better than the winter because there's so many more things to do, but that doesn't mean there's not a lot of interesting activities. There's no denying that Albania also has a very interesting history, albeit a little bit of a shady one. And so today we're going to visit the House of Leaves Museum, which is more commonly known as the Museum of Secret Surveillance. You can visit from 10 a.m. in the morning until 5 p.m. in the afternoon, from Tuesday until Saturday, 9 a.m. till 2 p.m. on Sundays. It is closed on Mondays, and the price is 700 lek for one ticket. So we're going to head inside and find out more about the secret surveillance team of Albanian communism.
The museum was opened on the 23rd of May 2017, housed in a two-storey villa that previously was home to the Gestapo before becoming the Central Directorate of the Secret Service from the period 1944 to 1991, encompassing nearly half a century of communist rule in Albania.
State security is the sharp and dear weapon of our party because it protects the interests of the people and our socialist state against internal and external enemies. And apparently this room is bugged.
The 31-room building actually began as an obstetrics clinic, something that I was completely unaware of until visiting the museum.
This is the Interrogation Room. So it started off as a medical center and then became an interrogation center where torture and other coercive tactics were used. Sounds a bit scary.
Surveillance was an integral part of the dominance of the dictatorship over the Albanian people, and it was absolutely a well-thought-out operation.
Okay, so this is like the hierarchy of the party. Oh, okay. So this was the headquarters for dealing with the surveillance of foreigners like me. As spies that were coming.
It's funny because I actually got accused of being some kind of spy regularly throughout my time in Albania. In fact, in my first week here, I was accused of being a Vatican spy given the coincidental timing of my arrival and that of the Pope's.
Ooh, okay, there's lots of old equipment in here. A vintage lover's dream. So there's all these old radios and voice recorders, these surveillance equipment that they would have used to, well, spy on people. cameras like my family would have had growing up. Binoculars, other camera equipment. This is a secret bugging device from China. It's a transmitter with microphone, and it's all secret. They don't know the model, they don't know the year it was made, all they know is it comes from China. That's how top secret it was. These look like some kind of order for the purchase of the equipment from China, from, I guess, Russia by the looks of it. Yeah, it says here that they purchased it from China and the Soviet Union. See what's in this room. Official documents from the archive of the Ministry of Interior, working platforms of state security in years, guidelines for working plans for installation, telephone control, and the help that they got from other communist countries of Eastern Europe, who actually trained these employees to the techniques that they should use.
After exploring the introductory level to the museum, I decide to head upstairs and gain even more understanding of exactly what I was looking at. There really is a lot of information crammed into a lot of different spaces, and I do recommend brushing up a bit on the communist history of the country before entering the museum.
Lots and lots of different rooms in here with different things. Looks like some of the propaganda magazines that they were producing at the time. Whoa. The walls are lined with different names of people who've been convicted as political prisoners, and there are a lot of them. Whoa. So by 1947, only 2 years after the end of World War II, there were already 18 prisons in Albania, 8 specifically for political prisoners. There's a lot of people who were taken in. So these are all sorted by surname, and it looks like particular families were certainly targeted, because there's a long list of them. Crazy. Small writing too.
To really understand what this museum is all about, you really must visit for yourself and take it in alongside the stories that you hear from everyday people. This was a truly totalitarian regime, and despite the country having come so far over the past 30 years, to the point where it's almost unrecognisable, there are still aspects of this past that affect the modern Albanian society in some ways today.
Okay, so this is really interesting. It says the right to privacy at the level of the individual citizen was not recognised by the communist regime, neither on the ideological level nor on the practical level.
Albanian society hasn't quite overturned this belief, and to be honest, as you've heard many of the foreign community take note of in past episodes, everyone is still all up in each other's business.
We still see this lack of privacy affecting culture today and society today. There's often jokes that the best way to surveil the neighbourhood is to have the grandmas and grandpas that are watching out the windows everywhere tell you what's going on. So this idea that everybody's still involved in each other's lives still happens and still affects society today. We have a very typically decorated living room of a home. You still see some furniture like this in rental apartments today, that's for sure. And I guess there's a bug hidden somewhere. I wonder if we can find it. Could it be in the clock? TV. Could it be in the TV? Ooh, looks like someone's opened this. I think there's a bug in there.
I don't think my personality would have held me in good stead during this era of Albanian time, nor do I think I would have been particularly good at knowing how or when I was being surveilled. I tend to be pretty oblivious to what other people around me are noticing about me. It's a really hard concept for me to grasp, this idea that everyone is so aware of what is going on around them. But visiting this museum really helped me to gain a deeper insight into what must have been a really traumatising time, given its long-lasting effects.
Oh, this is interesting. This is a survey of the actual population's perception of how people were spied on during communist times, so before 1991. And this one in particular says, how disturbing did you find the bugging or spying before 1991? And 30% said too much, which is quite a large number. And this says that over 350,000 people had some kind of political persecution, either deportation or confinement, and 520,000 people had relatives or someone that they knew that was suffering under this.
There are plenty of foreigners who agree that this museum is worth the while, and their comments can be found in the guest book at reception for anyone who doesn't believe me. Overall, tourist numbers in Albania are on the rise. In the first 9 months of 2019, nearly 5.5 million foreigners visited, representing an increase of 7.9% when compared to the prior year, with the largest increases coming from the nations such as Germany, Switzerland, Spain, and North Macedonia. Furthermore, Albania continues to grow year on year, and when comparing tourist numbers in the year I arrived, 2014, with the year of 2018, there's an increase of nearly 2.5 million and at a rate of nearly 62%. Given that Tirana is the capital as well as the place that the majority of expats call home, it's no surprise that so many tourists find themselves here. Of course, it makes sense that any tourist would want to explore the country as much as possible because there are so many different cities, towns and villages that are worth a place on the itinerary.
Where are you from?
Norway.
From Norway. Yeah. And how many days have you been in Albania?
About 2 weeks.
Oh, wonderful. And what were your impressions of the country?
It was very beautiful.
Yeah?
We're up in the north by Balkans.
Balkans, oh beautiful.
Yeah.
So you visited the lake and everything
Yeah,
there?
exactly.
Yeah, and so overall would you recommend other foreigners to come to Albania?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I ask where you're from?
Germany.
From Germany?
Yeah.
How many days have you spent in Albania?
In Albania, I think 5 or 6.
Nice. And what has been your impression of the country?
Seaside with the beaches is very, very beautiful. And yeah, I was just one day in Tirana, but it was also nice and the atmosphere is very good. And the people are very welcoming and friendly and yeah. So.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And would you recommend for other foreigners to come and visit Albania?
Of course.
Where are you from?
Austria.
Austria. And how long have you been here for?
2 weeks.
Oh wow, and what did you think of the country?
It's amazing. I was here alone 2 weeks.
Yeah? And so what places did you visit while you were here?
I was in Himara, Laura, Saranda, and I did daily trips.
Oh cool. What was your favorite part of your trip here?
Himara.
Yeah? Beautiful, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, Saranda is a little bit, there are already many tourists.
Yeah, that's
but it's
true.
nice also.
Would you say that Albania has met your expectations as a foreign tourist?
Actually, it's more than that.
Really? So
I was all alone, I didn't have any problems. People are over-friendly. Everyone helps. Really, it's nice and beautiful.
Where are you from?
From Germany and
Poland.
Oh wow, and how long have you been here in Albania for?
7 days.
And what did you think of your travels here?
Beautiful.
Yeah?
Really nice. Yes.
What was your favorite part?
Ted.
In Thet, yeah? In the
Yes,
north?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
you went hiking or?
Yes, we was on what the mountain is,
Aha.
mountain, yes, that was very nice.
Beautiful area,
Yes,
huh?
yes.
Wonderful.
But the whole national park is really nice.
The only mistake that some make that impacts their experience of Tirana negatively is that they look at the city from the wrong perspective, rush their time here, and forget to make the effort to check out the main attraction, so to speak. Because it's only by speaking to the local people that one could possibly understand how at home you could feel in this place that initially seems so alien.